endings are called cholinergic neurons. Cholinergic neurons. Whereas there is another kind of neurons, they are called adrenergic neurons. Adrenergic neurons. Now, adrenergic neurons release adrenaline-like substance. Adrenaline-like substance. Adrenaline, if you have any idea, is a hormone secreted from the adrenal medulla, and this substance is very similar to the adrenaline, so it's called adrenaline-like substance. And such neurons are called adrenergic neurons. So there are two types of neurons, but besides these, there are also now several other chemical transmitters have been found out that act as neurotransmitters in the different parts of the brain. And so, most important, the most common is this acetylcholine, and sometimes also this adrenaline-like substance. So, these act as neurotransmitters, chemicals. So, passage of impulses, therefore, from the presynaptic to the postsynaptic across the cleft is chemical, not electrical. So, then we come to reflexation, sensory perception, elementary structure of structure. Then we come to the different receptors that are present in the body. Sensory perception. Now, this sensory perception is because of these receptors. Several types of receptors are present in the body, both outside or on the body surface as well as in the inside. Now, so there are several types of receptors whose function is to obtain information about the environment. They obtain information from the environment. Now, this is vital for the body to survive. If the body wants to survive, it must keep on adapting itself to the changes in the environment, must keep on obtaining information from the environment, and this function of obtaining information from the environment is because of the receptors. There are several types of receptors in the body, and first of all, there are what are known as types of receptors. Briefly, we go to types of receptors. First of all, there are specialized sense organs. There are organs of, first of all, organs of spatial sense. These are all receptors. Organs of spatial sense. Included in this category are eyes. Eyes are photoreceptors. Eyes are photoreceptors because they are sensory to light. They pick up light that is reflected from the objects around us, enabling us to see them. So, first of all, eyes, then you have the ears. Their ears are supposed to be statoacoustic organs. Statoacoustic organs. Ears, one on each side, they are statoacoustic organs. They perform two important functions. One is hearing. The ear, will go to that a little later. Then there are what are known as pain receptors, so organs of special sense. We still continue. Then we have the nose. Nose is also an organ of special sense by which we have the ability to smell a substance. So, nose, it can be a good food or it may be a bad smell. So, nose is an organ of special sense. Then we have the tongue. Tongue also has this, is an organ of special sense with the help of which we taste good or bad, sweet or sour, different substances with the help of this tongue. So, these are organs of special sense: eyes, ears, nose and tongue. Nose and tongue can be called chemoreceptors. Chemoreceptors. Then we have what are known as, then there are superficial or cutaneous receptors. These are present in the skin. And they include the touch receptors. They are present in touch receptors are present in the dermis. If you have any idea, skin has two layers, outer epidermis and inner dermis. So, located in this dermis part of the skin, these touch receptors are present. These are called Merkel's discs. Merkel's discs. Touch. And there are deep in the dermis, there is a second type, that is Krauss end bulbs. Krauss end bulbs. They are also touch receptors, Merkel's discs, as well as Krauss end bulbs. These are present in the dermis. Krauss end bulbs are located deep in the dermis. Deep in dermis. Dermis is the second part of the skin. The outer part is called epidermis. Now we have what are known as the Pacinian capsules. Pacinian. So these are touch. Then you have receptors of pressure. They are also present in the in various parts of the body. They are called Pacinian capsules. Then you have stretch receptors, particularly in the muscles. So stretch receptors in the muscles, and also in the lungs. When we inhale or exhale, the lungs enlarge and they deflate. So this is because of this stretching ability of the lungs is because of the stretch receptors. In the diaphragm also, that puts pressure on the lungs, also there are these stretch receptors. So then there are thermoreceptors. Thermoreceptors, they are sensory to heat and cold, particularly heat ones are known as the end organs of Ruffini. End organs of Ruffini. So these are thermal receptors or thermoreceptors. Thus, there are several types of receptors which pick up different senses from the environment. Different senses from the environment. That is what we call it sensory perception. Next, we come to the structure and function of the mammalian ear. Mammalian ear, specifically ear and eye are mentioned in the syllabus. So we come to the elementary structure and function of ears. Elementary structure and function of ear. Ear, as I've already said, is a statoacoustic organ. That means it has two functions, both of which are equally important. One is the maintenance of balance during movement. Now, you must have heard of the vertigo, a kind of disease, or Meniere's disease, as it is also called. So, in the old age, people, when they move about, they cannot maintain balance, and they fall down. And even if they do not, that means that there's a condition of head reeling. Now, this head reeling may result in their falling down. Even if when they are sitting in a chair, they have the sensation of as if the body or the head is moving. So this is what is known as vertigo. Now this is a defect of the one of the two parts of the ears. So what I mean to say is that ear has two parts. One is called the vestibule, we'll come to that, and second is the cochlea. Vestibule helps in maintenance of the balance. It is the balancing organ. Vestibule or vestibular apparatus. Balance, maintenance of balance, and cochlea is for hearing. It is the actual hearing organ is cochlea. Anyway, before we go to that, let us have an elementary idea of the structure of, say, you see, this is the external ear. External ear, presence of the external ear or pinna is characteristic of the mammals. So this pinna is meant to collect sound waves from the outside and then so that and the sound waves are then conducted towards the hearing part of the ear, that is cochlea. Now, so the function of these pinna, characteristic of mammals, is to collect sound waves. Now, sound waves, if you have any idea, human beings, sound waves are measured in in hertz, H-E-R-T-Z, hertz, so many hertz. Hertz is the name of the scientist who devised this unit. So, the unit of sound perception is hertz, and human beings have an ability to listen to say up to 0 to say 20,000 hertz. Dogs, so this is man, then dogs can listen up to 40,000 hertz. That means dogs have a larger capacity to pick up sound waves. They can hear more than us. So, we have this up to 0 to 20,000, where in dogs it is 0 to 40,000. And in case of bats, if you have any idea, you will be simply surprised. Bats 0 to 100,000. Now, bats have an ability that is called echolocation, because they are blind. Bats are blind. So, when somebody is blind, how can it obtain information from outside? So, this is through their ears. They see their way around through their ears. So, they send out high speed ultra sounds. Now, these sounds get reflected from the objects around them, and then these sounds again are picked up by their ears. And the hearing ability of the bats is from 0 to 100,000 hertz. So, bats have most sensitive ears, in other words. Now, so this sound wave, in case of human beings, in case of the mammals, is picked up by the pinna or the external ear, that leads into an external auditory canal. So, pinna, you have external ear or pinna leads into the sound waves find their way into the external auditory meatus. This is that external auditory canal, why meatus? External auditory canal is the passage through which sound waves then move to the next part of the hearing apparatus. Then at the bottom of this external auditory canal, there is the tympanic, then there is a tympanic membrane. Now, this is a thin membrane that vibrates in accordance with the quality and the intensity of the sound waves. So, the tympanic membrane vibrates. Now, internally this tympanic membrane, so this is the tympanic membrane. So, this is that external auditory meatus. This opening is called the external auditory meatus. External auditory outside opening is called the external auditory meatus. Now, meatus, this is that external auditory meatus. External auditory meatus leads into the external auditory canal. This is canal, then from the canal the sound reaches the tympanic membrane, as a result of which the tympanic membrane vibrates. Now, these vibrations, then we come to the middle ear, external ear, then middle ear. Now, middle ear cavity, middle ear, so this is that external ear part, this is the tympanic membrane, then this is the middle ear part. Now, internally or on the inside, the tympanic membrane is connected with a chain of 3 bones, 3 small bones, malleus, incus and stapes. 3 small bones, malleus, incus and stapes, which not only transmit these sound waves from the tympanic membrane, but also they enlarge or also they increase the intensity of these sound waves to some extent. So, this is this malleus, incus and stapes help to conduct the sound waves from the tympanic membrane to the next part of the ear, that is called the internal ear. Now, this middle ear cavity, so in this middle ear cavity we have these 3 small bones, malleus, incus and stapes, and the cavity also has a canal that is called a connection that is called the Eustachian canal, Eustachian tube or Eustachian canal. The Eustachian canal joins the middle ear cavity with the oral cavity. So, Eustachian canal, that is the reason why whenever we suffer from cold, the Eustachian canal is from the throat side is blocked, so the hearing also is impaired. Hearing is impaired when we suffer from cold, and the blockage of this Eustachian tube or canal from the oral cavity side affects our hearing ability. Now, so this malleus, incus and stapes, 3 small bones, help to not only transmit but act as a lever mechanism. They act in a lever mechanism, and they help to transmit these sound waves into the next part of the hearing, into the next part of the ear, that is called the internal ear. Now, the internal ear, so external ear, then middle ear, the Eustachian tube or Eustachian canal, then we have the internal ear. Now, the internal ear has these 2 structures. One is called vestibule, the other is called cochlea. Vestibule, so the internal ear therefore has 2 important functions. One is vestibule or vestibular apparatus, which is responsible for maintenance of balance during movement, and the other is actual hearing, that is the function of cochlea. Now, the stapes fits into, joins into, in fact, into in the cochlea. This is that cochlea which is spirally shaped. Cochlea is named because of the snail. Snail must have seen how the visceral mass of the snail is coiled. So, this cochlea is also coiled like a snail. So, it's cochlea. The naming is because of this coiling of the cochlea. Now, this cochlea has 2 windows leading into it. One is called the oval window, into which stapes fits, oval window. oval window. Now, oval window, and then below the oval window there is another window that is called the round window. Oval window and an oval window, also called fenestra ovalis, and round ovalis, and round window also called fenestra rotunda. Fenestra rotunda. Now, the stapes in fact joins or fits into the oval window, helping to pass the sound waves into the interior of the cochlea. Now, the cochlea, the interior is divided by two membranes into three compartments. Two membranes are present. One is these two membranes divide the interior of the cochlea into three compartments. So, the membranes are the Reasoner's membrane. So, the two membranes, one is called membranes are partitions. So, one is called the Reasoner's membrane, and the other is the basilar membrane. Now, these two membranes divide the interior of the cochlea into three parts. Say, this is one, so this is the Reasoner's membrane, and this is the Reasoner's membrane, and the other is the basilar membrane, right? This is the basilar membrane. Now, this is called scala. This is called scala vestibuli, because this is next to the vestibule. So, scala vestibuli. This is called scala media. So, three compartments. What I mean to say is that these two membranes divide the interior of the cochlear cavity into three compartments: upper scala vestibuli, middle scala media, and lower scala tympani. So, this is that scala tympani. Now, the basilar membrane contains actually what is known as the organ of Corti. This is that. This is that organ of Corti. The actual hearing organ is named after this Italian scientist, Corti. So, it's called organ of Corti. Now, this organ of Corti is present on the basilar membrane, and from this organ of Corti contains number of elongated cells with a number of cilia. These are the cilia or hair-like structures called cilia. And from this organ of Corti, which is the actual organ, arises this is that cochlear nerve, which will carry the information, the sound, in the form of the information from the organ of Corti to the brain, to the primary auditory area. Remember, in the cerebral hemispheres, there are areas, primary sensory areas, association sensory areas. Association sensory areas contain memory, information that is already stored in them, So, whatever information that we receive now in the primary auditory area is analyzed by the information that is already present in the association area. So, whatever we hear, we give a meaning to it. This is the sound of this, or this is the sound of that. This meaning is given by the associated area of hearing. So, Wernicke's area that is present in the temporal lobe. So, this cochlear nerve carries the information to the primary auditory area. Associated with that is the associated auditory area, which analyzes this information and gives us information about what we have heard. Now, the sound waves that have entered into the oval window, actually oval window. So, and these are scala media is filled with a type of liquid as is called endolymph. So, this is filled with endolymph, and vestibule is filled with perilymph, and perilymph both here and in the scala tympani, perilymph is there. So, sound waves are conducted through the oval window into the upper chamber, that means into this scala vestibuli. From scala vestibuli, they find their way into, they are transmitted. They can't say that, we should not say that they find their way. They are transmitted. Transmission is a better term. So, the sound waves are transmitted from the perilymph via the Reasoner's membrane into scala media. In the scala media, in the middle compartment, there is the organ of Corti containing a number of hair cells. The hair is bent, and bending of the hair sends an impulse information through this cochlear nerve. So, then from the scala media, these sound waves find their way into the scala tympani, and from the scala tympani, the sound is again transmitted back towards the middle ear cavity, towards the round window. So, while it enters the cochlea through the oval window and exits it through the round window, it dies down. And during this period, we pick up the sound wave in the form of information by this cochlear nerve, which then carries it to the primary auditory area of the brain. Now, this is regarding hearing. Now, coming to the maintenance of balance. Now, you see, this is that cochlea, and there are the two windows, oval window and round window. Then you have this vestibule. Vestibule consists of three semicircular canals, as you can see in this diagram. Three semicircular canals with their bases swollen. They are called ampullae. So, vestibular apparatus consists of three semicircular canals, and each has a swelling at the base known as ampulla. The ampulla is a sense organ containing several otolith particles, calcareous particles, and some hair cells. Bending of hair by the vibration of these calcareous particles sends an information. So, 3 semicircular canals, these are the 3 semicircular canals, and there are 2 other swellings. One is called utriculus, and the third one utriculus, and third is seculus. Now, this utriculus and seculus have a similar function as the ampulla, but the semicircular canals, they are sensory to angular rotation as we move our head to the left or right. This is called angular rotation. Angular rotation is picked up by semicircular canals, and linear progression, linear is the function of the utriculus and seculus. So, vestibule and the defects that are seen in this vestibulal or vestibular apparatus is what is known as vertigo. Vertigo, or as I already said, is also known as Meniere's disease. In this vertigo or Meniere's disease, even we have a head reeling sensation. Even when we are sitting on a chair, we feel as if we are moving about. So this is called vertigo or Meniere's disease. So maintenance of balance, which is affected in this vertigo or Meniere's disease, is the function of the vestibule or the vestibular apparatus. Next we come to the ear. Not much time is left for ear anyway. Ears are photoreceptors. Next we come to eyes. Eyes are photoreceptors, one on each side of the head, and each eye eyes are photoreceptors that perceive light in the light of wavelength from 380 to 760 nanometers. 380 to 760 nanometers. They are sensory to light of this wavelength. This light is received from light from natural heavenly bodies, or maybe from electrical lights that are reflected from the objects around us, enabling us to visualize them. Then these eyes work on the same principle, work on the same principle as the camera. This same principle as a camera, just as in a camera there is the amount of light that enters the eye, or like the camera, amount of light that enters is controlled. Then secondly, the light image is focused on the retina. The light image is focused on the light receptive part, light receptive part that is called the retina, and retina by a lens system. Just as camera has a lens system, the eye also has a lens system. Then this image that falls on the retina is registering. Next is registering the image on a light sensitive surface. Then this captured image is processed. Captured image is processed in the occipital lobe of the cerebral hemisphere, by the occipital lobe of the CH, cerebral hemisphere, in the primary visual area. And this information is analyzed from the information that is stored in the associated visual area. So in light of the information memory that is stored in the associated visual area, we analyze this light that is reflected from the objects as this or that. Now, coming to the eyes, each eye is about 24 millimeter, that means 2.4 millimeters in diameter, and about 6 to 8 grams in weight. And it is formed of 3 concentric layers, because the so eyes are concentric hollow structures about 24 millimeter in size, about 5 to 8 grams in weight. Each eye is a hollow structure, and its wall is formed of 3 concentric layers. Wall of the eye is formed of 3 concentric layers. The 3 layers are sclera, outer sclera, middle choroid, and third is retina. 3 concentric layers. Outermost sclera is a tough layer made up of connective tissue. It's a tough layer which gives protection to the eye, and the middle layer is the pigmented layer that is called choroid, and the innermost layer is retina, which is the light sensitive layer, that is called retina. Now, coming to sclera is a tough outermost layer made up of collagen fibers, and it maintains, because it's tough and fibrous, it maintains the ability of the eye. It maintains the shape of the eye, not the ability, shape of the eye. And cornea, it has a part, as you can see in this diagram, the outer sclera has a part that is called light sensitive part through which light can enter, and cornea also functions as a kind of lens. So this cornea is the light transparent part of the sclera that concentrates, that refracts the light onto the next part, that is the lens. You see that lens is held in position by these ciliary muscles. In between cornea and the lens system, there is a fluid filled cavity. It's called anterior chamber. The anterior chamber is filled with aqueous humor. So this is that anterior chamber, which is filled by the by a liquid. Then this lens system divides the cavity inside the eye into an anterior chamber and a posterior chamber. The posterior chamber is filled with a jelly-like substance that is called vitreous humor. Anterior chamber was filled with aqueous humor. Then you had the lens system that divided it into two chambers, anterior and posterior. Posterior is it has a jelly-like substance that is called vitreous humor. The lens is not only held in position by these ciliary muscles, but also the changes of shape that we call the accommodation. So accommodation can also be brought about by the ciliary muscles. So cornea, then you have that anterior chamber filled with aqueous humor. Then you have the biconvex lens held in its position by the ciliary muscles, and biconvex lens can undergo change in its shape, and thereby we get the ability of focusing the lens on a near or a far object. When the diameter increases, the lens enables us to focus it on a near object, and if the lens becomes elongated, then it is focused on a distant object. So the biconvex lens is held in its position by these ciliary muscles. And then we have the next layer, that is the choroid. The choroid is pigmented because this is the choroid. The choroid, sclera, choroid. So choroid is the next part. This is pigmented, that's why it's darkened. So these pigments that are present actually absorb the reflected light rays. The light rays must be absorbed and only must be allowed to fall on the light sensitive part, that is the retina. So this choroid is a pigmented layer. Then you have the retina, which is the light sensitive part. Light sensitive part, retina, contains two types of photoreceptors, rods and cones. Rods are more in number than the cones. rods actually help us in daylight vision, in night vision. Rods help us in night vision, and cones help us in daylight vision. Now, there are three kinds of cones. Each can perceive a primary color. The three primary colors they can perceive. Three primary colors: red, blue, and green. Red, blue, and green. So these are the three primary colors. Other colors are obtained by a mixing of these three primary colors. And those who are color blind, they cannot distinguish between red and green. They cannot distinguish between red and green. So they are called color blind. So those who cannot distinguish between a red and green, so in traffic, they have difficulty in picking up the traffic signals. And so there are three types of cones, each responsible for perceiving a light of a particular wavelength, responsible for perceiving a particular color: red, blue, and green. And as you can see in this diagram, so these are cones and these are rods. So these are rods. So there are these two types of photoreceptors. One is helpful in night vision, the other is helpful in daylight, because in during the day only we can perceive colors. We cannot perceive colors in the night. So color vision, therefore, there is nothing called color vision, only the brain perceives it as a particular color. So the cones, which are responsible for color vision, daylight vision or color vision, this is possible only in the day, not in the dark. In dark, we cannot perceive colors. I'm not speaking of the traffic lights. And from the posterior end of this arises this has to be, what kind of nerve fiber is this? These are all modified nerve cells, so modified neurons. So these are axonic fibers. So these are dendritic, these are axonic. They help to transmit the light sensation towards the brain. They combine to form the optic nerve that carries the impulse to the brain. Now, so this is a very, very brief account of the eyes. Now, one peculiar ability of the human beings is the binocular vision. Binocular vision because each eye has a specific visual field, but when we open the two eyes, the visual fields of both the eyes overlap, and that is responsible for the this binocular vision that gives a better perception of things around us. So visual, this is because of the overlapping of the two visual fields. Each eye has its own visual field, but the two visual fields overlap and we get a binocular vision. Both images, each eye forms a separate image, but both the images are understood by the brain as one image, interpreted by the brain as one image. So this is a very brief account of the eyes, elementary idea of the